And welcome into the Garbage Goal podcast powered by Orlando Lacrosse Report. It's Patrick and Colin with you.
Hey.
And before we get into today's episode and our special guests, which we'll talk about in just a minute, we want to take a minute to talk a little bit about some Orlando Fall Lacrosse League ball that just happened this past weekend. And Colin, some fun action going on out at Austin Tyndale Park on Saturday. We actually saw middle school lacrosse, boys lacrosse, all the way through high school. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even recognize some of the names of some of the teams, but I did get a minute to watch, some different teams play, and I was impressed with, first of all, how many teams there were, and secondly, the level of lacrosse. I mean, considering that this is fall ball, right? It's a lot of like, let's get a lot of guys in the game and mix it up. It's maybe not quite as the intensity and level of play we would see in the spring. But
Correct.
still, nonetheless, good lacrosse. I mean, some big kids on the field, some good lacrosse, saw some really cool goals scored. What was some of your takeaways as you were walking from field to field in the 5 or 6 games that were going on while you were there?
Yeah, other than it being wet everywhere, it was great. And you gotta love fall ball names. Some of these things I don't even know. You look at this: Outlaws, Otters, Scorpions, Stags, Independence, Swarm. Macware, Blue Wave, White, Blue, Orange, Green, Navy. But decoded this a little bit with Hogan and Healy. You got Cardinal Mooney was out there, Melbourne Central Catholic, Bishop Moore, Winter Park, Lake Mary, Lake Nona, West Orange, Seminole High School, Windermere, Oviedo, Lake Brantley High School, Lake Highland Prep, Jesuit, Holy Trinity, Boone High School, Montverde, and then more. We've got even different teams this upcoming weekend. But it was great to see lacrosse starting again here in Florida. A lot of teams have been going at it, practicing throughout the early fall, and it's nice to be able to go line it up against some other people and have some zebras out there calling it close. So it was a lot of fun, especially for us. We've got a young team, so it was good to go see someone else.
I agree. The thing that I really enjoyed seeing was the number of high school players that were playing. I feel like over the last 7 or 8 years that I've been around the high school fall ball, occasionally you'll see a team that might only have a couple subs on the sideline. You did not see that on Saturday. You saw
Mm-hmm.
JV teams with a lot of players. And so it was a lot of fun to watch. And so now we're going to get into our special guest today on the Garbage Goal podcast. And today we have the head coach from Ponte Vedra High School, Ponte Vedra, Florida, Chris Polanski. So Colin and I are going to talk a little bit here to Coach Poe about his success, his journey, and so many other things. Can't wait to get into this. Turner, you have known Chris for a while now, Coach Poe. We're going to probably call you a little bit of everything. We got all kinds of names for you. I have names for you since you have continued to beat my team in high school, but we'll talk about that later. Man, we're so glad for you to be on the Garbage Goal podcast. Thanks for being here, and can't wait to get to digging into more of this today.
Absolutely. If you guys don't, if you haven't heard of Ponte Vedra and you don't know Poe, then you haven't been paying attention a lot in lacrosse in the last couple of years. Chris, I met you probably. I've been coaching now 11 years. I probably met you 7, 8 years ago at your tournaments that you guys were running. Ryan Healy introduced me to you, and down to earth, you know the game very well. You've got a heck of a background. But I always tell one story when people don't know you. They talk about PV, and we'll talk a little about this because shockingly, we're all fathers here. And
Yep.
we were at the state championship down in Naples. Healy and I, one of the things that we love to do is involve our children in the sport. And Poe, you've been around Connor and Brooks. You've seen them many times before. But it was super cool. We were getting ready for our game, and Healy and I had to go do something. And Poe's just sitting there. It's like, I'll watch them. And so we leave, completely forget about our children because we're A-class fathers, as everybody knows. And you look over, and there's Poe just sitting there, crisscross applesauce, with both of our sons just holding a conversation, which makes it even more special for us because Poe is about to have a kid coming to him. And it was just a cool moment that in the height of what we're all trying to do, we always go back to what we are. And obviously, you're a young father now, having to get into lacrosse that we're doing. But it just spoke volumes about who you are as a man, obviously, and what you do to lead your team. And it's something that I always tell people. It has nothing to do about the X's and O's of the game, but it's still a moment. We have a picture with you and both of our sons that I actually have printed in my house with your ugly mug sitting with our 2 kids, which is pretty funny. But
Well, I appreciate
that's a
it.
long way.
And I remember that
Go ahead.
actually the officials came to talk to us before, and they like walked up to me and like we kind of met, and they looked at me and they're like, those aren't your kids? And I'm like, no, they're Keeley's. And he's like, what? I'm like, we go way back. Don't worry. No
Yeah,
coaches fighting
it's
today.
good. What do we need to do? But yeah,
Yeah.
so talk to us a little bit about the start of you in lacrosse and kind of what brought you to Ponte Vedra. Obviously, this goes back to 5th grade, so kind of start us
Yeah.
there and walk us through how you got to Ponte Vedra.
Yeah. So I grew up in Dublin, Ohio. It's a suburb outside of Columbus, and I played football growing up. My neighbor was a All-American safety at Ohio State, so I kind of went everywhere with the son for a while, and then my neighbor grew up in Syracuse, and he went to Syracuse University, and he's like, Chris, you're big and strong and fast. Like, you ever try the sport? And simultaneously, it started in my community. They started a youth program, and so I picked it up in 5th grade. And kind of it exploded. And fast forward a few years, my junior year of high school, a new high school opened up. It was kind of 2 high schools split, and we had no seniors. But like a huge core of my friends all went there. And again, we were just lax rats at the time. We dragged goals to the middle school. My mom had a Suburban, and we messed it up, putting goals on the top and dragging it to the field so we could play. This is before you see goals on every field. And long story short, we went a state championship my junior year without any seniors in the Division II bracket. Then we get moved up my senior year, and we lost to my arch nemesis at the time was Upper Arlington, who's a Midwest powerhouse. I went to a small school, and so in the state championship, I got recruited by a Division II school, Wheeling Jesuit, which is up in Virginia. It's a super tiny school, and recruiting trip was great. And I got there, wasn't there for long, and was kind of this is a little small for me. And I transferred back to Ohio State, and Wheeling Jesuit ended super early. Like they ended like I think it was like early May, and Ohio goes into almost June with their season. And my buddy was coaching middle school, and ironically, we were texting about this about a month ago, and he's like, "Hey, Bo, we need help coach the defense. Like, you want to come out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go. Whatever. It was like 20 minutes away, and so I went out, and I finished up that season. And then when I was at Ohio State, I played some club. It was when Bresci left to UNC and Myers came in, and so like half the varsity team went. My club team had like 14 high school All-Americans. Like, I don't think we played in a game that was like within 10 goals. Like, we were waxing Division III teams. And it wasn't very serious. We were player coached, but so it allowed me to go coach. I coached at Dublin Jerome. We were super talented, and my head coach at the time was AJ Auld. And AJ was similar to some of the guys down here. He was plugged into everything. He was plugged into the Team USA U19 team, the Under Armour teams, and he ended up starting this club called Titanium Lacrosse, which was this huge club similar to True Lacrosse. But so with AJ, he plugged me into everything. I was at the Under Armour tryouts in the closed door meetings, with the coaches screaming at each other. I went to the US LaxCon conference, Team USA practices, and so fast forward a couple more years, I moved to Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville. My cousin lived down here, and he's like, come on down, live at the beach. And I'm like, let's try it. And so I was down here, and I still joke with this about Tom. I emailed Tom West because back then Lax Power was the big website. I don't know if you guys remember that. I'm sure Colin will. But it was kind of like
stats on there, baby.
Yeah, it's like lax numbers or something they converted. But anyway, I look at the best school in the area, SPD. I emailed Tom, when my resume for a 22-year-old was ridiculous because, AJ took me to all these things. And I joke, he emailed me back in 90 seconds. And, I was like, I just want to volunteer. And he's like, nope, you're not volunteering. Let's meet. And, and he kind of wrote me in. And I learned a lot from Tom and, there Adam Silva and a couple other Ponte Vedra guys. And simultaneously, that was kind of when Team Florida was blowing up. And I was, like the young worker bee. And through that, we do these showcases, we do these college clinics. And, when all the coaches would go and crush, hamburgers and stuff, I'd go fall around and be the ball boy. Coach, you need help with the drill? Like, yeah, I'll come help you with that drill, and, I played Division II, I played club. I didn't have this insane resume. So I was always, call it self-conscious or eager to learn more from these guys. So I was, those 22 to 26, I was a sponge. I'd follow all these guys. Oh, Coach Van Arsdale, you can help shooting on goalies? I'll come help you with that drill, and so all these showcases, I just was like glued to these guys. Fast forward a few more years, my buddy AJ, his club grew to they had about 75 teams, and he needed a director for Chicago. So he called me to go out to Chicago, and I thought I was a pretty good lacrosse coach then. And this is when I went to lacrosse school. And so I would sit in an office for about half the year with this guy named Kevin Boland, and they're kind of an older family, but he was I think he still is the all-time leader in John Hopkins for assists from midfielders, a three-time All-American. His brother played at Maryland, his dad was at Maryland, and so we would sit in an office for 8 to 10 hours and just go over the best way to train kids. And so we would create these drills and we sit it out, and with that, like my lacrosse knowledge just boomed. This guy is just one of the smartest lacrosse guys, and we would just sit and go over why shoot this way, why do this drill, why go over this. What about on the two man? You go over the top, you go underneath, you step back. You step back and whatever it was. Like we would just dissect things, watch film, and it just kind of like reopened my eyes. Like I thought I knew a lot, and so I went and coached for 1 year out in Chicago as a head coach. I broke my foot. It's 3 feet of snow. I know very few people. It was miserable. And Tom called me and he's like, "Hey, what do you got to do to get back here?" And, we had a really opportunity to come back to PV, and, with a new knowledge, Tom kind of set me loose to kind of take over our youth program even more, at Ponte Vedra. And, kind of fast forward to a few years ago where I kind of took over at PV, and that's kind of where we are now.
That's a
So,
great story. I'm curious. One of the things that just real quick, just to touch on Tom West. So, we all know Tom, and Tom has become a name that has become kind of hand in hand with Florida lacrosse. So Tom West, is having great success with Florida Crabs. Obviously, he's had great success with Ponte Vedra. Now he's at Bowls, and so I'm curious that moment. And you probably maybe you had insight, maybe you didn't. That moment where that announcement was made that Tom was going to leave Ponte Vedra and go to Bowls. What was the range of emotions for you? Because if I was you, I'd go, "Oh wait, this may be my chance," but also, hey, this is a guy that I've worked closely with that's leaving. Like, what? How did that all play out for you?
So there's kind of two parts. There's, the Tom part, and there's my chance part. Full transparency, I begged Tom not to go. We have a really good thing. He handled the parents. I get to go coach and, be rough and a jerk and go have fun and do my thing, and it was an awesome relationship. And, he's one of the college coaches, whatever, he's insanely connected. But for him, it was, as a friend, he felt it was a really good opportunity for him. And so obviously I supported him. For me, and kind of the chance, it was kind of loaded, right? But Ponte Vedra is a public school, so they have to go through a formal hiring process. And, as great as knowledgeable I think I am, I have 1 year head coaching experience. I've been an assistant coach and coached a bunch of youth teams. Like my resume, as was sick as a 22-year-old, but, as a 33-year-old, like, it's a little bit different. And, there's some pro guys down here and their buddies are all texting them about the job. I don't think they quite know that you make less than $2,500, but there's a lot of people sniffing around the job and
or free,
yeah,
or free.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
or you
so,
work for nothing like Turner does.
and so for me there, it was, like I love Ponte Vedra. Basically have been here for my entire, I see it, my entire adult life. And so it was very, double-edged. Like I really want the opportunity, but it's not gifted to me on a silver platter. And so, it was very like,
Sure.
I want this, but I also don't want some random dude to come in and say like, "Yeah, see, you gotta go to Bowls or whatever, figure it out." And so that process was,
Well, I'll say because I was involved with Sweet Lax lacrosse at that time, travel lacrosse, and had many families that were involved with our local program at Winterbrook High School, and then you all at Ponte Vedra. There was a very strong feeling that, hey, this guy needs to get the job. Like, in my opinion, there was no other.
No brainer.
Now, I did send an application in for Turner because we were trying to get rid of
ship them
him.
out.
I knew that wasn't going to probably happen, but
You
who
can't
knows?
fax it. You actually gotta email it. You faxed it and it just went to some random place. It didn't work out.
I hand wrote it and mailed it directly to Ponte Vedra High School. I don't know where it ended up at, but it's there somewhere. But no, that's a great story. It's a really neat testament to that relationship that you and Tom have had over the years. That relationship where he was able to move on to a new opportunity, and then you were able to step into that new opportunity, and that the school saw it, The parents saw it, the athletic program saw it, and of course, you've already had some success quickly in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no doubt. And
And it's shocking. Go ahead.
and
Go
I,
ahead,
and I
Paul.
was gonna say, like, it was, to Patrick's point, it was really cool, a cool experience for me to see, kind of parents rallying, but to the same point, like, that joke with him, our athletic director was new at that time, and he's Mike Harrison, and we've become great friends, but he came from a school that didn't have lacrosse. In most sports at public schools,
Mm.
you hire teachers, and it just like it's like,
Yep.
he's not a hillbilly, but this hillbilly's going to come in, he's going to hire some teacher just so it's not a headache, and it's just, so the whole, and they had to keep it open for so many days. And so, it was very stressful, but it was also, the parents rallied, and, it was so many tech, hey, do you need me to send a letter? Do you need to show up, to the front door of school? I'll go in and I'll go, we'll go in with 100 people. And, so it was really cool for me to kind of feel the love from those guys, and experience that. But again, there's definitely
Well,
some, like, there were some big names that were
It,
sniffing.
and for people that don't know, obviously, when you hear the word Ponte Vedra, right? It's not a very well known area. It's a small beach town. It's also home to the PGA Tour. It's also home to the TPC Sawgrass, Marsh Landing, one of the nicer areas. Jacksonville Beach is right outside of it. It's a small knit community, so and a lot of people want to live there, for sure. Especially look at it today after how it's all exploded out there, and to see what Ponte Vedra has turned into, not only from a lacrosse school but a football school. And that's actually something I would love for you to touch a little bit on. I think Tom probably cultivated this with the old football coaches there, and I think you've kept this through. And I'm going to butcher this, but there's a police organization in the youth that funnels football kids and lacrosse kids, because we have no crossover in our school, and a lot of Orlando schools have very little crossover football to lacrosse. But I love what I've seen from Ponte Vedra, that not necessarily the word share athletes isn't the right way, but there's a relationship between the coaches where they see the benefit of playing both. Talk a little bit about that, what you've seen at Ponte Vedra.
Yeah, you know what? It's again, we had this vibe that we're a big school, but we're the smallest big school in 2A, right? Our girls are actually in 1A, and so we are, kind of one of those smaller communities, and we just can't afford to have kids like totally specialized, and so. There's twofold. One, I have a great relationship with Steve Price, who's the head football coach. And what we're both really good at is there's some guys that are lacrosse guys that play football. There's some football guys that play lacrosse. There's some guys that are kind of in between, and we have a couple really high level recruits that are playing football, and they miss Saturday morning so they can go fly up to wherever to go to prospect days and tournaments, and Coach Price is cool with it. Maybe he's cool with it because he's afraid if he makes them choose, they might not play football. But I'm gonna go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt, and he supports that these guys are high level lacrosse players, and so that's huge. And then also at the youth level, um, like we bend over backwards to try to accommodate both sports. Like we try to build practices, so if they end at 5, we start at 5:30, or whatever they do. We start, traditionally we start our club way later than almost every area in Florida. So we can let football guys do it, and they'll only miss a week or two of practice in lacrosse, and we go a little later. And for me, it's the same thing. Like there's definitely some football players that play lacrosse. My 2 starting D middies are the starting wide receiver and slot receiver. A couple when we won the state championship a few years ago, starting LSM. Tommy Zatello plays at Army. He's getting reps for them right now. We had a D midi who plays for Richmond for football, and so to kind of ignore those guys and to try to make them specialize, I think is a poor choice. And again, especially as someone that kind of has limited numbers like we do, and again, I think. They're high school kids. At the end of the day, we want to have fun. Our goalie Nolan Parlett was a 4-year starter, state championship winner, phenomenal student who's going to Air Force in his senior year. He kind of came up before practice in the summer, and he had this funny look. I'm like, oh God, he got in trouble. He's like, Coach, I got to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, what's up, kid? And Nolan and I had a great relationship. But he's like, I want to play football. I'm like, okay, like what's the problem? And he goes, well, my mom doesn't want. She's afraid to get hurt. Like, what do you think? And I was like, Nolan, like. You've played goalie your whole life. It's the most miserable position. You're stressed all the time. Like you can't go in and practice lefty or throw behind the back. Like every time you go in, it's stressful. Go play football. Go 1-8 in the football season, and you don't care, right? You lose one lacrosse game, and you're a stress nightmare. Everyone can't stand to be around you for a month. but go do these different things, and we support these guys. Like, we have, again, Nolan played his senior year after not playing. Cannon Houseman, another one of our players. He hasn't played since middle school, and he played his senior year. Because they just want to go do it, and it's not me saying you're going to be punished for this or that. And do I say, hey, maybe Sunday morning go throw a round lacrosse stick, and you and a couple buddies, maybe once or twice a week hit the wall. I might ask them to do that, but I 10, 20 minutes a week, that's not too crazy.
I think that's great. That's a great perspective on that, and I hope that over time we'll see more Florida schools take that approach, especially the football coaches across Florida, to see how lacrosse and football can work hand in hand and support each other, both with the kids having fun, number one, because that's the most important thing, and then secondly, too, how it complements the sports really, each of the sports. I always kind of use the story. One of the success stories we've had at our own local high school at Winter Park is, Hayden Clem, who's now, I think this week, actually moved himself up into potentially the third string center spot as a preferred walk-on at University of Florida football, which is insane. But he also played lacrosse for 4 years at Winter Park while playing football.
And
he
wrestled.
also played deep pole and wrestled. And he played deep pole at, I think, 265 pounds, something like that, which is
He's a big
crazy. Anyhow, but Coach Poe, talk a little bit about that transition from when you took over as a head coach. I mean, obviously, I feel like for the most part, I mean, I'm sure there was somebody that was probably upset just because maybe Turner, because he didn't get the job. But, most of the parents were excited about you, that continuity of you taking over the program. But what, or was there any pressure, right? So the expectation is you guys have built a program now that each year you're supposed to be in that Final Four. You're supposed to compete for a state championship. What was the pressure like for you going into that first season?
You don't even have to ask Poe. Was there pressure? The answer in all capitals is YES. They're just waiting for 1 inch. 1 inch to show he couldn't do it, and it would all blown up. That's 100%.
You're
Sorry,
good.
go ahead, Poe.
How did you deal with it? How'd you deal with it?
I was kind of how I was raised. I was really fortunate and prepared. My high school was, we turned it, we won a state championship my first year, and I went back to coach. My high school coach, AJ, had a ton of pressure on him. And everyone's got their college football fans, but so I'm, Ohio State. It's, with Ohio State, we joke that there's, 2 games a year that you enjoy, right? It's the Michigan game, and then the last game of the year. Every other game is just please don't lose, please don't lose, please don't lose, please don't lose. And and we kind of have that, and it's I've been here for 13 whatever years, and your perspective really kind of shifts. Like the pressure's there 100%, but you find other goals in the season, building relationships, and it sounds really cliche, but one of my favorite moments this past year was Carter Parlett won a national championship, and he calls me. I don't know. It was late, and I thought he was in trouble, or I didn't put 2 and 2 together, so I shouldn't even answer the phone. Coach, I love you, and I miss you, and thank you so much for everything. And if you
That's
ask
awesome.
anybody, when Carter Parlett was in high school, we mashed heads, like we did not get along, and so kind of building those relationships, and you see, one of my assistants, his name is Jack Francis, and he talks about it all the time. It's like, we're not trying to be their friend. You did a good job in 5 years when they send you a Christmas card, and kind of shifting, being here for so long, and winning state championship, losing one, losing many, kind of going through these ups and downs, and you see, calling Matt Keeler, right? Matt Keeler played for me back in the day. Matt Keeler is an assistant coach for us now. Matt is one of the most valuable people in Ponte Vedra program. He got a job through the PV Lacrosse connection, and we went over. He's got a daughter who's a little over a year, and we went over for dinner the other night so our kids can play. And kind of seeing the stuff in those helps alleviate that pressure, because Tom did such a great job, and this community has high expectations, and I put high expectations. I mean, I hopefully don't sound too cocky. We got a pretty talented group, and I expect to get the most out of them, and so I do put a lot of pressure on it. But
Absolutely.
It's at the end of the game, when we're walking off crying and hugging kids and losing, that feels like a lot. But a week later, when we do our senior dinner, and it feels like nothing happened, and we're going to be lifelong buddies, it kind of helps push some of that away. And at the end of the day, there's pressure always there. And again, kind of how I brought up, and I try to tune a lot of it out. And I think most of the people, no offense, putting on the pressure don't aren't in the trenches with us. And when we can, the assistants look at each other and the players can look at each other, and nope, we may not have played our best game, but we did our best. We tried as hard as we could. That for me, kind of helps alleviate that, and just seeing that process throughout the years of, we won a state championship. And next summer, nobody's rolling out a red carpet at the Orlando Open when you walk up. You got to walk to the backfield just like always. You lose the state championship, it's the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of going through that stuff. And to be honest, it's a credit to Tom. Like, he had to take that heat, right, for a long time, and I could kind of sit back, and same thing with AJ when I was back in Ohio. I could watch these other guys take the heat and kind of see how they responded and reacted, and what the pressure did to them. And kind of help shape how I view it.
And it's interesting, Poe, that you say that about going over to Keelers, and like those are the moments that I remember more than anything. And Healy and I talk about this, and Healy talks about this in our parent meeting, which a lot of people, that if you're not a coach or you're not involved in sports, you don't understand what's happening in the trenches. We get your children for almost an hour and a half to 2 hours, dedicated time without a cell phone in their hand. There's not a parent in this world that's going to listen to this, that's going to do that can say that they have that time with those kids. And it's such a cherished moment. Even when they're little, we believe in tearing someone down to build them up, right? We're going to be as hard as we can on you, but we're going to support you from the very bottom. We're going to bring you all the way back up. And having that time with those players, and having him call you after the national championship, you probably had zero expectation that he was going to call you, but look at what you were able to put into somebody. It's the best. It's the best thing in the world. When I see someone that's excelling in business, and they come back and like, the best 4 years of my life was you yelling at me the whole time. It's like, heck yeah, I thought you hated me. Perfect.
And that's it. It's
I love that. I love that.
Guys
It's so
that
good.
I felt like I was super hard on in this. It's they come back and, Coach, when can well, I'm ready to coach Jaws this summer, and it's like those first couple of years, you're looking, when you see him, I'm like, is this guy gonna punch me now that he doesn't play? And then like, no, okay, yeah, I was doing the right thing. Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of Jaws youth lacrosse, so there's a couple things I want to touch on. One thing that I do want to touch on before we get done today is I do want to talk about, briefly talk about last season, the success you had, kind of maybe briefly talk about what's coming up for the spring, how you're feeling so far this fall. But let's talk a little bit about
My favorite.
youth lacrosse. You guys have built a really great program with Jaws. You have been able to have success feeding that. And much like what we do here in Winter Park, some other programs are doing across the state where, for lack of a better term, you're filling the funnel. That's the term that we always use, is fill the funnel. We got to consistently, it's just a numbers game, really, quite frankly. It's let's get as many kids playing as possible, and then it all hashes itself out when they get to high school, right? You have some kids excel, some kids, plateau, some bottom out and quit, whatever it is. But talk about your philosophy with that youth program, and then also what you see across Florida that's working and not working in youth lacrosse, that you kind of go, man, that works, and that's something I wish would work better or should change.
This is kind of my secret sauce, but I give it out to anybody who's willing to listen. And I feel really, really, really strongly about our youth philosophies. Yeah.
Hold on, let me get a pin real quick. All right, go ahead.
So two parts to our youth philosophy, and the first one is the easy one, and that's sometimes harder, and this isn't always easy to replicate in every other areas. Is I don't want kids from other areas, right? I want PV kids, right? And of those 20 kids, right, let's say 10 of them are good lacrosse players, 5 of them are okay lacrosse players, 5 of them probably should get cut. But what happens, right, is those 5 mediocre kids, 2 of them turn to good, right? Those 5 kids I should turn to cut, 1 of them turns to really good, right? And when you continue to do that throughout the years, and let's say that's at the 10U level, right? So then they continue to develop, they continue to grow, they're in our program for a long time. And I don't like, we talked about this with our young guys. Like, I do not want to turn anybody away, right? Like we have gotten to the point where we're very fortunate. We have our youth numbers are great at Jaws. We do have to cut some kids, but we And I say to them, like, we have a plan for you when we come, right? We have an army of college alumni that come back and they want lessons for cheap money, right? And we're going to get you in lessons. There's a lot of pro college guys in Jacksonville that do all this stuff, and we're going to set you up with those guys. And I want you to come back again in the fall. Right? We try to put guys on practice squads, and back in the day, I think people looked at it more of like it's some money grab, and who's trying to put, but it's like you, when you see it go, like the guys that are juniors and seniors, the parents there, like they can list off 3 or 4 guys like, oh, this kid was garbage. This kid we should have cut back then. Like we would all cringe every time they threw the ball to this kid, and they turn out to be role players. And so I like, it's tough. Again, every area doesn't have enough to do it, but sometimes it's more fun to do these kind of bigger all-star, all-area, whatever teams. But for me, like, let's say we did that in Jacksonville, and so we take the 10 best PV kids and then the other 10 get cut. Well, most of the time, these PV kids don't have a home, right? And that's, you talked about what's working and what's not working. My biggest fear in lacrosse is as it's growing, it's at the top, the high-end talent, it's shrinking at the bottom, and there's not as many homes for kind of those mediocre to below average kids, right? We can all go play rec. Rec is what it is. It's great for development. It's great for skills, but it's short, and there's a ton of kids. And so sometimes with these bigger clubs, and we're fortunate, Turner and I, right, we're at programs that have really strong cultures, and the kids can do both and they want to do both, right? But a lot of those other places, right, they feel like the other product's so inferior, or these bigger clubs put too much pressure on them with practice, and they just don't do it. And when in turn those guys don't do it, now maybe the other kid doesn't have a good player to play with, or they just don't have enough kids to make a team in general. And so just kind of securing that, the stinkers, right, and getting them to mediocre, and a couple of them turn out, right. And again, for us, we're a small public school, so maybe it's not as important to others, but every kid matters, right. And like you said, it's a numbers game, right. If it's 1 out of 10 stinkers get good, well, let's get 30 stinkers, right, and then we'll have 33 good guys, eventually, and kind of that, and then the second part, and this is our secret sauce, is fundamentals, right? Every single person I ever see comes to me and what does the South do different than the North, right? And I tell them is what does every South dad play when we grew up, right? Everyone played football, right? What do you do at football practice? Let's go off tackle 27 right, off tackle right, 25 right, off tackle right, 23 right, and you just run through play after play after play after play after play. Right. And that's how I'm not telling you that's how to coach football. I don't know how to coach football, but that's definitely not how you coach lacrosse. Right. Like I joke, our high school, our JV teams, most of our youth teams, if we practice offense, like if we have 20 practices, like 6-on-6 offense, like 2 or 3 practices out of the entire time. Right. And the offense is, again, secret sauce. My 12U team runs the same offense that my varsity team runs. The same calls, the same play, right? We run some different tweaks and stuff. But like you hear me call Buckeye, when the 12Us do it, they're doing the same thing that my varsity guys are doing. It's simple, right? We don't have to spend time teaching it every fall, every summer, right? Every spring, they guys know it. And we spend 30 minutes a day shooting on a fence, right? Catching and throwing in a box so you catch step threat, right? And master the fundamentals. Defense, do footwork, right? My so because it's going to make people cringe, and we've all done it, but my biggest knock is we go watch a defensive practice and they're doing long passes for 15 minutes, and the dad's sitting there and he's got 17 man up play, 703, razor, and it's like if you can't catch and throw. Yeah, if you can't catch and throw and you can't shoot, the plays are irrelevant. I always used to say, like, I can teach you the Ponte Vedra offense and the Lake Mary offense to any mom, dad, sister, brother in 30 minutes. Promise you, right? I can teach you, but I can't teach you how to catch and throw, catch and shoot, right? All that good stuff, and it is so hard for parents because it's not like they're doing it maliciously, but it's just what they know, right? And to be honest, like as a coach, it's a lot more fun to like, hey, let's like I'm playing Madden, right? Let's have some fun and let's get these guys going rather than sitting there and like, nope, get on your one knee. We're shooting for 15 more minutes, 100 more ball. Like that stuff's not that fun. But the biggest reason, like these kids in the Northeast, you saw, they're all a bunch of 5'9", 5'10" white kids with bow-legged knees, and they're not very fast, but they don't drop the ball and they put it in the corner every time, and they do the little fundamentals, and they're stealing our scholarships left and right. And so again, like the other knock is you see it everywhere. Like we took TV, to a couple, to toot my own horn for a little bit, which I hate doing, but we took TV to a couple national tournaments. And we're playing against these teams, and these teams are way better. They're running 17 plays. The kids are looking over to the coach, afraid to run in when a wide open shot because he's not running the right play. And my guys are, base offense, do whatever the heck you want if it's open, and we're hanging and competing with these teams because we're just doing the little things, and conversely, when that gets to high school, right, we have an army of kids that can catch and throw and shoot, and at worst are role players, right? And then you find one or two, three studs. That's enough to do pretty good in high school. And so I firmly, firmly, firmly believe in this. Like, and when we have fun, like we do a lot of games, right? A lot of West Jenny, right? I want kids. We do this drill. It's called Mount Olive, where it's a 3-on-2, just in rapid fire. Every kid touches the ball. The defenders are moving around. And parents, I think, I think if we didn't have the success that we had, and I kind of had the resume that I had, I think a lot of parents would be, you know, speaking out and a little bit more upset because we did the same drill every day. But it's like I try to do it on our social media where I'll show the same drill that the 10Us are doing that my varsity guys are still doing. And there's no secret sauce in lacrosse. There's no secret offense in lacrosse. Like 90% of it is the kids are just better and they can catch and throw and they can shoot. Like we all like to think there's some sick offense and some awesome coaching, but just most of the time it's better kids. One, 2, 3 goal games, right? That yes, you can X and O and scheme, but we we win a lot of games just because we're better than people. I don't want to take any credit away from myself, but like everybody knows what
Yeah,
offense we're doing.
I mean, that's the reality of sports. I mean, I when I've coached youth basketball, I will tell kids all the time if I see them shooting a 3-pointer, but they can't make a full court layup, full speed, you
And,
don't need to be shooting 3-pointers. You
and
need to be able to make a full court,
I'm
full
sorry to
speed
cut you off,
layup,
but
right hand and left hand, and you need to be able to
you,
make
you,
a
you have a
10-foot
perfect
jump
parent
shot.
story. Is we have an A and B team at some age groups, and the A team was doing one thing and the B team was doing something else, and I got an email, why are we doing this? And it's like, you aren't ready for that. Like the same thing, like you guys get, they're running right now. You got to learn how to walk first. Like you guys aren't ready to work on to rolling off the crease and
Mhm.
step down for a shot. Like we need to learn how to catch throw ground balls. And it's very hard sometimes for people. And to be honest,
Yep.
I'm going, you're getting me going here on youth lacrosse. I think it's why lacrosse loses a lot of like superior athletes early, right? If you step on a football field, give the kid the ball, right? It does me. Give me the ball. I'm bigger and stronger than everybody. I'm gonna go get 40 yards, right? Give me a basketball, put me on the basketball court. I'll stand under there and I can at least catch and throw, right? Like any doofus can catch a basketball, but lacrosse, you get out there and it's peas on a butter knife for a year and a half,
Hmm.
2 years, and the little nerds are catching, throwing, and zinging it past you, and like. And I do think that that's why we lose a lot of athletes early, and then they kind of get back in it later when they're friends or whatever. But it is like frustrating to like nail down the fundamentals. Like I got to figure out how to walk, right? I got to figure out how to do the layup for the basket and dribble before I can start doing the fadeaways and the 3-pointers.
And,
There's
and
a
one
learning
thing,
curve for sure.
and one thing I would say, and it's if parents and people that aren't involved in the game as much as we are, it's amazing when you pay for private lessons. You're out there and you want to hear a coach barking at your kid. But what truly is amazing when you know a team and you know a culture, when you can shut your what mouth and allow the kids to activate, to do what they're supposed to do, and to watch them take over a game, because that shows you as a coach that they've listened, they've learned, and they're executing what you've asked them to do. And I'll tell you, Poe, you've had some teams where we'll send our kids out there when we were in the building mode and you guys were peaking at the right level. It was a college coach and every single one of those kids circling through, and you're literally having a ham sandwich over on the sideline just watching as it happens. And that truly, in my opinion, is one of the best coaching jobs you can do, when you can shut your mouth, let the kids run and play the game. Because if you handicap them, why the hell are we here?
Mm,
It's the Johnnies and the Joes more than it is the X's and the O's,
A
and that's
hundred
the
percent.
pures that we see in
We
lacrosse.
again we call it video
Yeah.
game coaching
Yeah.
or whatever. Where just do that, do this, and like, and yes, there's sometimes when you're running very specific plays, but we try to here's the guidelines. But if you see it, go. Like we if the freer you
Yeah.
can play, and again to your point, like we want them so prepared that when hopefully there's, more than 100 fans on the stand screaming and they can't hear, they're just, oh yeah, we know, and it's the Lake Mary game, right? That game was crazy. Kids couldn't
Yeah.
hear and they couldn't hear me. They just looked at each other. Yep. All right, we're running this, right? This guy down here, he's got the matchup that we've talked about. Boom, let's go,
Do it.
right? I got the dude, clear through, I'm going. And again, I think, especially at youth lacrosse, that our sport is way too overcoached, and it's again, I just think it's hard because they just don't understand it, and they want us to go from, as a dad or as a newer coach, you want to go from again the dribbling to the advance, and let's put in the triangle offense. It's like, yes, maybe the triangle offense is the best offense, but dudes can't dribble, like we're not going to even be able to get through there. Yeah, and so
We're 8 years old. We're 8 years old.
We don't have Scotty. We don't have
that
Scotty
doesn't
and
mean no,
Jordan. We're
like
not
any,
running the
like,
triangle
no
offense.
structure. Like
Wheels,
we definitely
wheels,
need some
run it,
structure,
shoot
but
it.
it shouldn't be,
Yeah.
every practice every day.
Yeah. Well, if you're a young parent listening to this with a young child who's just starting lacrosse or has just started, that is all of it in a nutshell. It's fundamentals. People ask me all the time. I've been fortunate to have two boys that are playing now at the college level. I have one more left in high school, and people ask all the time, "Where do we start?" I say, get a stick, get a ball, find a wall, and just bang the wall out. You're just left and right. And I'm not a lacrosse guy, but I've seen it work for my own kids. I've seen it work for other kids, and it's the effort you put into the fundamentals that will make you a better player when you get on the field. Because again, that same analogy, like you're saying there, Poe, like you can't ask a guy to go do something or run a play if they can't hold on to the dang ball running down the field, or they can't pass it to the right guy because
Great,
they
a
can't
great
throw
story to
it.
that.
And I always used to get so cracked up when I used to get so cracked up at Ryan yelling at everybody shoot overhand. But now I get it. I understand. I understand
I was
why
gonna
I
say to
was
your
yelling
point,
that. But yeah,
lacrosse I think
tell us the story.
is a fairly unique sport where, if you work hard enough and put in the effort at most programs, you're gonna at least be able to find a role and again, I'd say heavy majorities, start and thrive. There's a kid, a couple kids, but there's one at Ponte Vedra. His name is Miles Silva. Miles was a, short, overweight, right, slow attackman, and he struggled, and he put the work in, and he became a crease attackman, right? And he found a role, right? I'm not fast, so I'm just going to have unbelievable handles, and I'm going to catch and finish everything, right? He ended up going to Army. I think he had 42 goals and 1 assist. He played indoor professionally for a couple years. He's crushing it out in, I think, Kansas in the Army somewhere. But he worked his butt off. It helped that he turned out to be 6'3" for sure. But he worked he worked his butt off, and again, he'll tell you he's not fast, he's not quick, he's not, like, except like he Hulk strong, like, but he just worked his butt off. And there's positions all over face off, right? If you can find a way, goalie, to shoot, right? Yeah.
Why you got to bring up face off, Poe? Why you got to talk about face
Yeah,
offs?
well,
We can get on.
yeah, but you said short, fat, and slow, and I immediately thought you were talking about Turner, but I realized he didn't play at Ponte
No,
Vedra.
no, I missed the scouting report on
And I'm
him.
on 6'3", to be clear.
That's a great. I love that story of Silva. I've actually heard that story about him, and it's so true. The work you put into it is what you're going to get out of the sport, and that is the neat thing about lacrosse. I've found as a parent watching the sport is that if you do put the effort in, they're actually, for the most part, as long as you have some relative athleticism to you, you can run and move a little bit. There is, generally speaking, a spot, an opportunity for you to contribute to the team, especially at the high school level.
And here's the greatest thing. You don't have to go play in college to have a great career in high school and to do something for your team. That's the biggest thing about this. I'm not a college player. I did get recruited to play D3 in Virginia. Okay. Then my dad told me how stupid I am to turn up a free education in Florida. But we have kids that just love the game in high school. They don't start for 3 years. They tough it out. They work through it. They find a role. They may give you one or two key plays, but those one or two key plays and what they do for their team is going to set them up for business, for their life, for whatever they want to do as they move forward. And it's such an important thing that I always tell parents, your kid's probably not going to go D1. it is so against you if you think your child is going to go actually play D1. But let's focus on your community and what he can do here in Winter Park and what he can success and the friends he can make by doing one or two plays. It's such a great sport for that. And I think that's a good point, Poe, to talk about, because role
And
players
you're
are
in
what
a
make
similar
every
position
single
to we
team
are,
we've
where
ever had.
we have big numbers, right? We have a lot of good players, and you want to keep everybody involved. And we'll get 35 guys on varsity, right? And if close game, like we play more guys than most teams. We play like 22 guys, 23 guys in some big games when we're going really deep, right? So that's what, 12 kids that aren't playing, 10 of them who know for sure they're not playing. And I know everybody doesn't always love it, but we like to have fun on our sideline, right? And that's their role, right? Our guys' role is to celebrate on the sideline and to bring energy when good plays happen. And right, and my athletic director, they do some funny stuff sometimes, and he's like, well, what do you think about this? And I explain, I'm like, they choreograph, like they take it's game night for them, right? They know for sure they're not playing, right? How many other guys on other teams,
Yep.
when they know I have no chance of playing, go into the game going bonkers because they have a role, and I just fortunate to have a culture. 100 like
And
when
that
they're
feeds
going
the
bonkers, it's
starters.
like the first thing in the quarter, the starters will come over. I'm like yes, boys, like keep that up. Like we need that all the time. Like we can feel it, and then it just fuels. And then when some of those guys are seniors that are never going to play. Some of them are sophomores that need to learn the ropes, and everyone kind of just gets in line and kind of accepts it. And it's it's the role guys that are, again, we talk about the pressure and all that stuff. A really good story. We have, I think, one of the best goalies in the South, and Jack Pillow, right? And this year we didn't have a backup goalie. It was a big committee named Brett Reed. His brother went to play Division I at Vermont and is now down at Ole Miss. Brett's not a good lacrosse player. He was like our third D midi, fourth D midi. He was ultimate team guy on the sideline. But before the season, he's like, "Hey, coach, who's playing goalie?" Like like this was like in the fall, like joking, and then like 2 weeks later, he's like, "Hey, I was thinking about that. Like, I think I could do that." Right. And so Brett takes 3 months. Yeah. And so we had another goalie who was a
Pure
freshman, and I
psycho
needed
is
him to
what you're
play
talking
JV because
about.
they didn't have another goalie. So he for 3 months, he sits there with Maddox Johnson,
See rubber.
all our college alumni that are coming back, just ripping on him. Right. He's sending me pictures of, bruises, just getting destroyed. Right? But he came in a season, and he had to unanimous voted team captain for a backup goalie who was very, very mediocre lacrosse player. But he bought into his role so much, and ended up starting him a couple
That's
games,
awesome.
and like it was insane. And the kid knew, he's like, the only way I'm playing is if Jack P gets hurt, and even then, right? Poe might find somebody else to put in, but he's like, this is my role. He's like, I'm gonna take it seriously. Yeah, yeah. And he's like, I'm gonna take it seriously. I'm gonna make
Trash
Jack
can may
better,
come
and
play.
it's just like that's the stuff that is really cool for me. And just seeing him, like a 17, 18-year-old kid just being that selfless is pretty unique outside of sports. Yeah, yeah.
Pretty rare these days.
And
That's
and
such a
so
that
I'm
is
sorry,
so
one
good.
more
I
one more
love
that'll
hearing
come
that
back to
kind of
you guys.
story.
So if
So
you got anybody
let's
knows anything about PV, our
you're good,
field
good, yeah,
is
yeah.
streaky, to say the least. And Jack P rolled his ankle that night before we played Winter Park. And so like he couldn't walk off the field. It was hurting so bad. And so we look at Brett and we're like, Brett, you ready to go
Of
tomorrow?
course.
Yes, like dead serious. Like and to my assistants, we walk off like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, Brett just gave me the look. He's ready. Like if Jack can't go, we're going with Brett. We're doing it. And Jack ended up, getting 19 layers of tape and ended up playing. But it was just, you know, yeah, he ended up having his Jordan
Oh
game
yeah, he
there,
played
but
pretty well.
it was
Played
just funny.
pretty
Where
well.
like just look him straight in the eye, Brett Reading, just yeah, I got this, coach.
Yeah,
Like
great.
no joke, like put me in, like I'm ready to go, and it was a very cool moment for me.
That's that's great. So let's change gears. Let's talk a little bit about the season. Let's look back real quick on this past season. You again had another great run. Had a lot of success during the regular season. Had some great wins, and then came up into the playoffs. Talk about that run to playoffs, how you felt going into it. Of course, our team at Winter Park played you guys at Bowls. Had a tough, gritty game against you guys, which you guys beat us. You guys had some other nice wins, but as you got closer into getting into the playoff, how were you feeling? What was your thought? Where did you think that could go? And then
yeah,
and then talk about that
those
game against
were
Lake
kind
Mary.
of newer to the lacrosse scene. The kind of PV Lake Mary rivalry has kind of rekindled as of late. But for those like Turner and I and been around for a while, it's nothing new. Gary's a great friend, mentor, someone I look up to. Same, Danny, we do a lot of stuff together. So I've known these guys forever. And so it's a really unique relationship where we talk you know, all the time during the season. We share scouts, more than most. You know, and with them, it's just kind of that what's coming no matter what. Like it's maybe one every 4 or 5 years in the past someone's gotten upset, but we gotta get through like Mary to go down to the Final Four. Um, Conversely, kind of the way I do our schedule is just anybody, anytime, anywhere, right? And last year, maybe people thought we were down, or it just kind of worked out. We had an insane schedule last year. That coincided with our trip up to DC. We had an awesome win against, it was at the time, nationally ranked St. Stephen St. Ags. And with Dublin Jerome, my mother came down. They ended up undefeated and number two in the Midwest behind Culver. They were a sick team and physically beat us up a little bit. And so it was a super, super tough schedule. But one thing, with kind of some of that leadership we had, it was, we were down multiple times. Kid never came back, right? We kept fighting, we kept working, we kept getting better. And we were trying out a lot of different things, right? We kind of went into the season with kind of a plan, and sometimes, the year before we went in with the plan, and I said I'm gonna do 2 lines of minis, and we didn't change all year. It was great, right? And one goal away from the state championship, and it worked out. Last year was a little different, where we had a lot of trial and error. Just seeing different things, right? Going up to DC, playing with the shot clock and against those guys, kind of reshifts how you think, and they attacked us different ways. And again, kind of, we play that first game with like Mary, and you kind of know, right? This is the tester. We didn't have our face-off guy end up going to overtime, so we kind of were feeling pretty good about ourselves. You guys aren't going to like to hear it, but that the Winter Park game this year was big for us. We were on, I don't know, like a 3-game skid, right? We lost the 2 DC games. We got beat up by, I think maybe a 4, no, yeah, 3-game skid. We beat the St. Stephen St. Ags. We lost to Bolus. We lost to Jerome. And then we lost to a Lucy veteran from South Carolina. We kind of blew away a lead. And so it was one of those turning points. And yeah, 3. And there we go. And so we show up Saturday morning to play Winter Park, and that night, the Friday night before against Lucy Beckman, we had a former alumni pass away. It was kind of I got emotional. It was just an emotional game. And then next Saturday, we kind of show up at the field. We always do a throw around when we do night games, just to kind of get loose, and kind of looking around. I'm like, boy, I don't know what it is, but like something feels different tonight. Like I think we turned the corner, whatever it is. And, we came out against Winter Park that night, and with, Winter Park, you guys were loaded, super, super good team. And we played really, really well. And it kind of, sprung us through, fast forward to the Lake Mary game right there. Anybody who knows Gary Robinson and knows me, right, all season long, hey, you want to trade film? Yeah, but send me back to Lake Mary when you play it, right? It's like it's just what we do all year, right? You see his goofy red polo show up randomly to PV home games, down to our scrimmages, right? We're doing the same thing. Yeah,
Fully
he's
unbuttoned. I mean, Gary's
he's full
got like
Florida man,
no
man, for
buttons
sure.
on his shirt. I don't understand
Yeah,
it. He's
yeah.
got to get it in there.
Yeah,
He's got that.
and
He's got that
and
Magnum
so
PI
it's
thing
it
going.
just
That's
is what it is. We all know
amazing.
about it,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I always flirt with, do you talk about it? Do you not talk about it? And it's like we decided it's not something we're going to hide. We need to get our stuff together, or that team in red's going to be a problem. And so kind of rolling into that game, or kind of that couple weeks, it was tough. It was a tough couple weeks. We had a lot of kids sick. We played Nice. Max Johnson scored 1 goal. And literally he walked off the field and laid on the bench, and I texted his mom and said, "Come pick him up from behind." We finished the game without him. And it's I don't want to bring up excuses. So we roll into Lake Mary. And we came out with the game plan to be super, super aggressive, right? We wanted to press really, really hard on the ride, do some different things that we hadn't shown all year. And we did. Right, we came out and we jumped them early. And I think it was 4-0 before I know it. Boys are going crazy on the sideline, and coaches like it was. You talk about the nerves, like that's the nerve, right? My assistant Matt Keeler is he's not going to be happy to be sharing the story, but he's scarred. Lake Mary knocked him out his senior year. We're hugging each other, crying, and it's always at Lake Mary. And so going in, he's like, Lake Mary, hey, come on, this place. Why are we going to come to Lake Mary? And Gary's going to crush my spirits again. And so we're everything's going good, and we look back and Maddox ready, and Maddox is on the bench, dead tired. Corey's out of gas. Cannon had been sick for 2 weeks. He can't go, and I think in hindsight, going aggressive got us a lead, but it also we kind of used up our juice really quickly. And then it was kind of hold on for dear life, and that team is super talented. They got guys everywhere. They're really well coached. They know us. And so it was just a slugfest from there. We had a ton of really good opportunities. And it's in that game, it's the rivalry game, right? It comes down to one or two big plays, and Masterson was pretty unbelievable. And they ended up winning. It's kind of the irony, right? I kind of grew up down here in Florida, and grew up with Healy and Colin and Gary and Danny and Terry and some of these guys, and so it's a unique feeling when you walk through that handshake line, and as pissed as you are and as upset that you are, and it's like, what? I'm happy for you, Gary. You and Danny, it's your turn. Go get yours. Hopefully go get theirs. And it's we go, yeah, they did. We go back and
They
hug
did.
and cry it out, and have our senior dinner and move on. But it's one of those things. It's what when you sit back and the optimist in me says, what does one goal really change on a season? And I can say that the last 2 years, and then the pessimist in me says, probably 2 state championships, one goal changes in a season, and so it's kind of the double-edged sword, but it's
It,
it's you do it for the fun, and you keep doing it because you're hungry, and you want to get that feeling out of your stomach again, and it's we got our youth practicing up.
well, it's tough. It's tough because you get so close, but then I think afterwards you realize, there's only going to be one winner. There's only one state champion. You have hundreds of teams competing in each division to be that one champion. And it's funny that you say that about, having knowing all these coaches at all these different schools in the history you have. And my history with Florida lacrosse is much shorter, mostly vicariously through my own kids. But it's funny that as I've gotten to know more people in Florida lacrosse, people that, quite frankly, I didn't like because they beat us or we lost to them or we didn't win a state championship. My sons are now playing with two of the kids that beat them on in the state championship, the Jupiter team that year. So like I hated Jupiter for all of like 12 months. I didn't even want to see Jupiter written anywhere. I didn't want to see Jupiter in the sky. I didn't want to see anything. And so, and I kind of felt a little bit of that towards you and the Ponte Vedra families a couple of years ago when Griffin and his group unfortunately lost in that semifinal game. But it's just, you get that realization like, hey, you just compete and there's only one winner and it is what it is. But it is so interesting to see these teams that continually are just kind of going after it. And so as you're looking forward to the spring, and of course, a lot of stuff's going to happen between now and then, but what are your thoughts about your spring season? What are kind of your expectations for this team, the makeup of your team, as you've lost obviously a couple kids that have gone on to play Division I lacrosse, graduated some other
it's funny,
seniors, but
right?
you have some
When
guys
we're
coming
riding
back.
back on the bus home, and God, we just lost Maddox Johnson, right? We just lost Luke Lowry, right? We lost Matt Gray, Corey Blows, Parker Kemp, and it's like
And it hits.
we're
It hits
we're in
right
big
there.
trouble, right? And then you kind of yeah, and then then you kind of dust off and
It's real.
regroup, and
It's real.
summer lacrosse comes way too quick, unless for the one team that wins the state championship, and then you can't wait. You see everybody at the summer tournaments, and then we're kind of looking around, and it's yeah, whatever. I got the best goalie in the state. All right, I have real good fogo. I have really good defense. Really, really good offense coming back. We expect to come compete and go for state championships. Yeah, are we the favorite? You ask me, yeah, but I don't know. I don't. It'd be really tough for me to go in and have expectations other than a state championship with the talent that we have, right? And again, I think it's like you said, there's only one team that does it, and maybe it's I don't know what the right term, narcissistic or whatever to expect. Like, yeah, we're gonna win it when there's all these we're not special, right? There's guys in South Florida they're at working too, right? The guys in Orlando, they're out grinding, right? We're not unique, right? We're not destined for this, right? It's we're flipping a coin, right? Mason goes low and instead of going high, and right, it's going to overtime. Who knows what happens? And so kind of that it's yeah, I don't know if that answered the question there.
No,
It
it's good.
100.
I mean, I agree. I think you have to go into it believing you can win it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that if you don't
And I also
have
think
belief in yourself and what you're going to do, then what's the point?
It,
So,
and to be very clear, you've heard Poe string you the story with a little violin that we're just this little school in Ponte Vedra. We're so tiny. We have no resources. Let me go ahead and set the table. They have a great youth program. They have a lot of support, and Poe is very, very humble right now until you coach against them. They're loaded. They're always going to be loaded. They have the mentality that you have to have in this game because they work hard. Those kids go to bat every single day. They're thinking about a state championship. They're no different. They thought about that playoff game. They thought about that one goal game. And those juniors and sophomores and freshmen and eighth graders that watched that game, because I know a lot of them traveled to see it, have not forgot about that game. Because there's games that I haven't forgot about last year that I know that I'm circling for this year and planning for it. And it's one of those things, and it's why I love when we have Ponte Vedra on the schedule, because you know you're going to get every ounce of energy that Poe has, his entire staff of 47 people, and then all of his players that are going to be there. It's state championship or bust, unfortunately, and that's just where his program is, where we hope our
and
program
kind of
continues
Colin's
to be
point,
at.
right?
And Lake
It's
Mary
you
obviously
know
is looking for a repeat.
whatever. Say what it is. When we talk to my youth programs, right? I talk about I don't care about winning the Orlando Open. All right, I don't care about winning the whatever invitation. I want to win state championships, and I want to get your kids college scholarships, right? And I preach that from they're very young. If you come to a PV home game, you'll see behind our bench or on our sideline 10, 15 youth kids, right? And to your point, like all these get like almost every one of these kids I've coached since they were real little, right? And you can tell me, am I going to have a chance to win a game with Jack P and Cage? Yeah, like yes, with some of the guys, right? We get Cannon Houseman and Tanner, and right, these guys that I've been with forever, Ladd and Griffin and Smitty, and like, these seniors that have been with me forever, like yes, I have very much high expectations and confidence in these kids. We've been working hard for a long time.
I think the thing that I'm getting from this conversation, and this is the thing that I would like to share with our viewers and listeners, is that if you're a Florida lacrosse coach, Florida lacrosse parent, and you're sitting around going, hey, how do I get our program to this level? How do I get my son in this type of program? Instead of sitting around and looking at what a few handful of programs are doing around the state, it's time for people to jump in the state of Florida and say, hey, I'm going to make this happen in my community. I'm going to make this happen in my high school. I'm going to make this happen in my area. And if Colin and I joke about this all the time. We're both sales guys, right? So like, if I sniff money, I sniff blood, I'm making a phone call. I am on this in my truck. I am there. I'm going to make something happen. And so what people need to be doing is they need to be picking up the phone call. They need to be getting on Instagram and DMing, whether it's Coach Poe, or it's Coach Crawley, or it's the coach down the street, or it's this program or that program, and figure out what other people are doing and go do it. Just start, right? Like, because you guys had to start somewhere. Jaws had to start. You didn't just birth it one day and it just
I love
came
to
out
touch
an
on something you said,
18-year-old
Patrick.
kid.
Like
It starts
so
in its
twofold.
infancy,
One,
and you have to
if you
grow
look
it,
around at
nurture
all
it.
the best programs in the state, or let's say 8 out of 10, right? PV, Winter Park, Lake Highland Prep, Jupiter, St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Andrews, the Tampa Prep, they all have strong youth feeder programs, right? All of them have strong youth feeder programs, right? There's a couple others that can kind of survive on other things, but every single one of them, and some people do it different ways, right? Terry kind of they stick together, right? The snipers and stealth kind of help those guys. Tampa, they kind of everybody's kind of got different ways to do it, and again, we're lucky we can kind of do it our way, but figuring out how to develop the youth and put energy in it, and one thing that you see a lot is you get one dad, right, that's all in, right, and let's say you got one kid, right, Patrick, and he comes through, and right, the class above him is important, the classes below important. When they're gone, I'm like, I don't care, and not that you don't care, but it's a lot of time, and there's not a lot of forethought and infrastructure set up to when the hero's gone, right? There's not another one ready to go, and you see, there's I won't put names in, but you see areas that come in, they get hot, and then when this person leaves, they drop off the face of the earth, and it's again, it's easier said than done, but it is all of those programs that do well. Benjamin, like they all have strong youth programs, and again, they're all built a little different. Duke Blacks plays their own thing. Yeah, you Orlando guys, you guys, do retrievers at times, and we hop on LCO at other times, and there's no perfect model, but finding something that can withstand a dad going through and just a 10U team, 12U team, 14 team, don't see your youth, right? And it's again, these programs aren't just luckily good, right? Every year, right? There's a few that pop up here and there, but you go back and look the last 10, 12, 14 years, it's the same teams at the top 10,
Right.
12.
There's
I think
intentionality.
Patrick, you talked a little bit about that, and as accomplished as Poe is, and Ryan Healy and Crowley and Tom and all of these head coaches that you talked about, it takes one phone call to reach out to them and say, "Hey, we're trying to build XYZ. We're trying to build XYZ city, and we're trying to figure out how do we get started." They're gonna spend the time to give you some ideas, some resources of where you got to go to start it. It's not Rome wasn't built in a day. It's definitely not going to be built in a year. But if you put the right pieces in place,
every one of
your
those guys
program
you mentioned,
can
I know,
succeed and
does
can
it.
move
And
forward.
Terry
And I
started
highly
clubs all over.
suggest it.
Tom sits down with guys, right? I'm texting. There's a guy in Orlando who's trying to start his own club and do their thing. And another one in Tampa that we talked to. Right, I'm not the end all be all, but if you want somebody else's number, I'll give you Tom, Terry, Spalding's, right? Healy's. These guys have been around, right? It's a small world, and kind of the rising tide of us all. We were all those guys he's listed. I promise you are all willing to help anyone who wants it. And again, we don't have all the answers, but we have perspective and a whole lot of experience.
Well, listen, Coach Poe, Chris, we're thrilled to have you on the Garbage Goal podcast. This has been an amazing show.
I was
I think
gonna
we're
say,
actually going to split this one up in two
when
episodes.
you asked me about
I
youth,
think we're just going to have to split this
when
one
you
up
asked me
because
about
it's
youth
so
lacrosse,
good.
I almost said, how much time do you
It's
got? You
it's
get
our
me worked
longest
up
one
on
so
youth.
far, but it's so good. I know. I mean, in Colin and I say that all the time. I mean, a lot of times we talk, the last few episodes we've done, I
100%.
mean, there's like, we could do a whole episode just on youth lacrosse, just even how to set up a program. We could do a whole episode on the fundamentals. I mean, there's just so many elements to this game that are so beautiful and so much fun, and it's hard to cover it all in a short amount of time. But we're thrilled to have you on. I just want to say, just as a parent and as a casual fan of Florida lacrosse, it's been real fun to watch your program prior to you being the head coach and also you being the head coach. The families in Ponte Vedra have always been really just good people, and we've been fortunate to know a lot of them over the years. And I'm still pretty bitter about not having beat you with either one of my older sons. But Garrett and Griffin swear to me that Gus is the better one of the three anyways, and he's only in 10th grade. So we'll see how that all pans out. But I want to just give you the compliments
We really
and that's not
appreciate it,
just
man.
for
Really
you,
do.
that's for your parents, your school, your kids that you have, and just appreciate your time and sharing. Yeah, it's been good.
Hey,
So, and I apologize for Colin,
we'll
like I said, just in general, just for everything,
we'll see
because
if this thing gets
he's
uploaded
Okay
just,
and
with
all
that.
that. I don't know
I
if
don't
we're out of
even
the
know
woods
why I
yet.
have him on the show sometimes.
Hey, listen.
Let's put it this way.
Yes.
Poe gave you the greatest answer, the same answer I gave to Healy. Do you want
100%.
free help? And Healy was like,
Well,
yes. And
well,
that's
thank you
how
guys
we're all
very much for
involved in
having me
this
on.
world.
Yeah,
And
I
here we
appreciated
are.
it. I had a
And
good
here
time.
we are. So, well, thanks again. Thanks, everybody. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for listening and tuning in and watching the Garbage Goal podcast powered by Orlando Lacrosse Support. Until next time, big shout out to our friend, Coach Chris Polanski. Good
Let's
luck
go.
to Ponte Vedra High School next spring. And until next time. All right. So let that